Hey guys, welcome to Hurting Little Cows to the Glory of God. Today I wanted to make a quick video about unschooling. And I'm not making this video against any of my friends that are talking about unschooling right now. You probably know who you are if you're watching this video because you're posting on unschooling right now too. It was just something I was thinking about because of a podcast I was listening to and all this stuff. So I think unschooling can be very, very good. Different ways of unschooling are different. So what I am talking about is how people would say that I unschool. We do child-directed learning. So I don't necessarily tell the children, here is what we are learning for science today. We do sometimes do a science topic, but there's a lot of days where science is because they've picked out certain books at the library and we kind of run with what's going on with that. Or the kids get really interested in a book, and so instead of having assigned reading, they're reading a book that they've chosen instead of here's the book and here's the questions we're going to answer like you would think of in a typical classroom. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying unschooling. It's child-directed learning and kids wanting to learn. Teaching kids to love learning, or not even teaching them. Kids are born with an innate love to learn, so helping them to grow that, I guess is what I'm saying. God has given us brains to be able to learn more about Him so that we can glorify Him better and learn about the world around us. And I think that children naturally want to explore and see the world around them. You can see that with babies. Today, Gideon made his own little obstacle course. We have a wooden puzzle with these big wooden knobs on the tops of the pieces. And he found out that if he puts his feet in between the knobs, it's like a little obstacle course for his feet. And he kept going back and forth trying it, and he'd step on a piece and then he'd start again. And he's 21, almost 21 months. And so kids innately want to learn about the world around them. So I think that you can do a lot of schooling without really making the child, here, sit down and read this book, what you think of as in a typical classroom. Because when they're working with 20 students, they can't say, go ahead, study whatever you want. I do remember when I was in school, though, the thing that I liked most was when they would say, here is a long list of books, pick one of these books to read and do your own project on it. I thought that was the best because I didn't like having to do everything that everyone else did because we read some books that were really, really boring. Anyway, back to what I was saying. I do think there is a point, though, that you need to push your children outside their comfort zone. I have one child, Samuel, I will name him. I don't always name my children when I make these videos because sometimes it's something that's not positive, and I don't want you to think of my children in a negative light. But sometimes I'll mention their name when it's either something positive about them or something that it helps you to understand what I'm talking about. So like Josiah, you guys all know he has certain issues because of his epilepsy and his cerebral palsy, so I might name him in something because it would help another parent with a special needs child. But anyway, Samuel. Samuel is 13. Samuel loves history, loves history. If we had nothing else to do during the day but read history books, he would be totally fine with never learning another subject. He knows how to read, but he doesn't necessarily want to answer all the questions on a reading comprehension test. He wants to just read it and tell you all the stories that he just read, which is great, and it's a great way to learn. But he loves history. If he never did a math problem or a science experiment in his life, he'd be okay with that. But you give him something history and how they made this boat, he wants to figure out how they made that boat. So there is science involved, there's engineering involved, there's lots of other things involved in what he's doing. But what I'm saying is I need to push him out of his comfort zone because he would just sit there and do history and not do the other subjects. So I do give him a directed math because he doesn't choose to do math if he doesn't have to. Does that make sense? Where other kids of mine are just more of a natural learning all-around student and they want to learn all of the things. So I do think there's a point of pushing your child outside their comfort zone. But to do that, your kids have to see that you're willing to go outside your comfort zone. So that's what this video really is to stress to parents that we need to make an effort, not just asking our kids to learn things. So one thing that we need to do is to teach our kids that things are hard for us. Because I think a lot of times, I know recently, we had our daughter just move off and get married, and that's why she moved off, not in a bad way. But there were a lot of things that in the kitchen we just naturally did that she's having to learn in her own kitchen with her own ingredients. Sometimes things that like I didn't realize, but I was telling her, hey, have you checked on the cookies lately? We don't set timers around here. That's just a mommy thing. And so the girls have never set timers because mommy doesn't. But just teaching them to do these things. And I'm realizing that I didn't always teach them all the steps to it. And they think things are very easy for me. Like they've asked me, how do you know what to put on a chicken, like spice wise? How do you know what to put in this dish? And it's because of the experience I have, which is great. And we all have to have those things that we know how to do just easily. But also, do my girls see me say, hey, I'm gonna try to make croissants today, and this is a challenge. I've never made croissants, by the way, but I think it would be really cool. But this would be a challenge. This is something I need to study. I need to figure out what I'm doing. Maybe it's making a phone call. Maybe you need to contest a bill or something like that. Calling and saying to your kids, I have to do this thing, and this is not something that I'm comfortable doing. Mommy's going to have to work hard. This is something that's going to be a challenge for me. Does that make sense? The other thing is showing kids that you make mistakes. Like, it is okay to show kids, I forgot to put the baking soda in these biscuits and they didn't rise. One thing that Josiah says often is mistakes happen. Because we've tried to show them that it's okay to make mistakes. It is okay to work hard and try to make a garden with some new vegetable you've never tried and it doesn't turn out. And you can learn, oh, maybe I needed to water it more. Maybe I needed to put it in a better sunlit area. But to actually teach your kids that those things are, like, mistakes are okay. Not that we should live our life trying to make mistakes and just do things half-hearted, but that things are going to happen. With the light bulb, he said there were 1,000 ways that I found didn't work. But it wasn't failure. It was just he found there were ways that didn't work. And he kept trying. Instead of saying, oh, didn't work, we're done. No light bulbs ever invented. So teaching your kids that, one, things can be a challenge and that that's okay. And that you're willing to make mistakes. And those two things happen when you're willing to learn for yourself. Whatever that learning is. Maybe it's reading through the Bible and you've never done that before and you're actually asking God to change your heart and change your pattern of ways if you find something in the Bible that isn't something that you already do. Maybe it's about loving your neighbor and you're not doing that. And so you say, oh, this says this, we have to work on this, we're gonna do this. Maybe it's learning a new cooking skill. Maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's taking on a home project that you haven't done before, and so you're watching YouTube videos and you're trying to figure it out. But letting your kids see that you're not just living within your own comfort zone, you're willing to try and fail if necessary, will make your kids understand that failure is part of the learning process and will help your kids in their unschooling journey. So that's what I wanted to say today. Each kid is different. You're going to have to figure out what works for your kids. Some of my kids could go totally child-directed learning and I wouldn't really have to do much at all. I'd help them, but I wouldn't have to push them. Where other kids, I would have to push, and that is totally okay. God made each of us different. And so helping your kids to find the place where God has put them, not fitting a certain mold that you think your child needs to fit into. So thank you for joining me today on Hurting Little Cows to the Glory of God.